I watched Mufasa and I really, really, really loved the movie.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you.
we're all looking forward to the regional versions as well in India because there are
Hmm.
two of the biggest superstars,
I know.
Shah Rukh and Mahesh Babu, who are voicing it, and there's so much buzz in the country. I
Hmm.
wanted to know from you, did you get a chance to interact with either of them, or have you got a chance to even watch their movies?
Oh, watch the movies, of course, but I haven't got a chance to interact with them. Instead, I interacted with the director of the regional version of the film. And it was actually a really great conversation. I think that the movie, The Lion King, it just means so much to so many people all over the world, and yet language is very specific. And I thought it was really cool that the thing that was important to him was important to me, which was the emotion of the characters, these family dynamics, and knowing, that these actors are going to be playing these characters. I found it very moving.
If you could tell me a few movies that you've watched or have come across of Shah Rukh and Mahesh Babu.
Oh my goodness, I don't want to butcher a pronunciation, so I'm not going to say, and I also don't want to choose movies from their filmography that they go, why did you choose that film? But just know that when I heard word that they were going to be voicing these characters, I was like beyond, beyond, beyond.
Mufasa is, a very typical Indian movie. Like the elements of the family dynamics, the grandeur, and especially the music part of it felt
Hmm.
like I'm watching a Bollywood movie.
Hmm.
Did it ever occur to you, or in the future, would it ever, if given a chance, would you work with like an Indian music composer, say like an A.R. Rahman or an
Hmm.
M.M. Kiravani, to bring in that element in your movies because music plays a vital part in
Oh,
India.
of course, if it was appropriate, of course, one thing I will say, you mentioned Bollywood and the musical numbers. I remember just growing up and watching movies. There was this moment in like the 90s where Bollywood cinema started to cross over, and I'd never experienced end credit sequences, anything like what you see like in Bollywood cinema. And I remember thinking if I was sitting in a theater watching this movie, like how much of a communal experience it would be. And so, as we were setting about filming the musical sequences in this film, we started to take a little bit more liberty of how we could orchestrate some of the movements of the characters. The very first big song, I Always Wanted a Brother, the brother song, that one at the end, they're up on this hilltop and there's all these animals like moving around in these circles. It's not a Bollywood musical number, but it was something that I felt like it embraced like just a bigger energy, which is something I always find in Bollywood cinema.
Now that you've mentioned the scenes and the grandeur, I wanted to know this movie is very different from the movies that you've done previously. So when during the process, what was your biggest challenge that you faced?
The biggest challenge was it is different, but only in the technology and maybe in the look of it. But I think it's still characters who feel like they are outsiders, to use a term. Mufasa feels like a stray. He's very similar to the lead character in this film Moonlight that I made a few years ago. I think that there's all these different similarities that had to do with characters. To me, the only thing that was different was they are lions and they're talking and they're singing, and it's animated. But those are things that are very textural. They're not about character, not about tone, not about atmosphere. And so I really felt like once I could acquire the language of how the movie is made, I could then start speaking in my own voice. And that was what we did.
I think that's very evident, like by the end of it, especially with the various Lion King movies that we've watched. This does stand out.
Oh,
Uh,
thank
my
you.
last my last question to you is that the writing in the movie is so brilliant that there's arc for everybody. The
Mm.
one arc that stands out for me is Scar's arc.
Hmm.
So while given the movie is almost 2 hours, a little over, a little below it, were there
Hmm.
scenes with Scar that you wanted it to be a part of the movie, but because of limitations of time, you had to take it out and it like broke your heart?
There's only one scene with Taka that I took out of the film. Not that broke my heart because I think that the movie is Mufasa's film and everything's about balance. It's all about balance. But there's one moment that I experienced with Taka that you didn't experience with Taka. But I'm thinking of Mahershala Ali, who I worked with on the film Moonlight. He won an Oscar for that film, and there's a scene in that movie between him and Janelle Monáe that we filmed, but is not in the final cut. And I love that he once said to me, Barry, that scene, it's not in the movie, but it's in the performance. And I think Kelvin, who played Taka in the English version, that scene is not in the movie, but it's in the performance. That's how I think of it. And so in a way, it is in the movie. You feel it, and sort of the weight of the world on Taka's shoulders. So it's in there.
All right. Thank you so much for talking to me. I hope there's at least a sequel where we get to see a little more of what happened until like we meet Simba later on.
Well, there's tons of time between the end of
Uh,
this film and what we know happens in 1994. So possibly,
That's
possibly.
exactly. Like at the end, that's what I was wondering. I was like, I hope we get to see how their relationship actually strained and everything happened.
Yeah,
But thank you
that's a
so
good
much for
thing.
talking to me
Thank you,
and
Dishya.
all the best for the movie.
Thank you, my dear. Appreciate it.